Hello, you are listening to the NextGen Planners podcast. NextGen Planners is a brilliant financial planning community with just about the most supportive membership you can find. We strive for inclusion and best practice throughout our profession and the industry as a whole. Each week we take a dive into an aspect of your profession with honest conversation, fresh ideas, and provoking thoughts from insightful individuals inside and outside of financial services. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the NextGen Planners podcast. I am Amelia Hamilton, and I am your head of community here at NextGen Planners. And today I'm very excited to be joined by guests that I always enjoy speaking to, always a pleasure. And that is Jennifer Ellis from Wellington Wealth. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Of course, my pleasure, completely. And so to kick things off then, everybody has a job title, but it's hard to work out what does that actually mean in practical terms. What do they do each day? What does that look like? So to give our audience a bit of an idea of what you do, how you do it, I'd like to start by asking, what does a day in the life look like for you?
Okie dokie. Well, I suppose my alarm goes off at 5:40 in the morning, and that's me up, and I am on a train by 6:43. So I'm sitting at my desk in Glasgow by about 7:35 every morning. And to be honest, that's my favourite time of day because it's quiet. There's nobody else here. I get lots done, and I'm definitely a morning person at the best of times. So I have a miracle morning if I get up early, and especially coming into the spring, the nice mornings. It's really nice to look out the window and see the sunrise. But yeah, and what I do next is I sometimes go round the office, check that it's all okay. Water the plants, because we've got a lot of plants, not these ones, but that's just my wallpaper. Check everything's okay for the day. I try to be quite organised and structure my day or my week, and have two kind of ops sessions each day, where I have penciled in a power hour because that's what I intend to do. Now, in this job, I don't think you can have any 2 days that are not interrupted what you actually want to do. So, it's good. So I try to be quite structured. I've got a diary of all the tasks that need done in the year, and I just work my way through them. Mondays is when I catch up individually with the team and their task lists and see if I need any help. And then, with Tuesdays to Thursdays is normally when clients come into the office. So if we've got client meetings, then we're prepped for that. And Friday's more of a kind of tidy up day, trying to catch everything that we haven't done, and also have another catch up with the whole team just to see what's been good, bad, or ugly that week, and try to address any issues they've had or share knowledge or that sort of thing. So that works quite well. But yeah, it's always jam-packed because there's so much in the remit, and it's everything other than client work. So that's how I kind of structure my week.
Absolutely, and that sounds like it can be quite nice to then feel relaxed in that structure of being like, well, this is the day I do this, and these are the day we have clients, so that you can try and hone in on individual things. Because I guess if you just have a week and a list of tasks, it's harder to kind of compartmentalize and get these things done if suddenly you've got a client coming in and that you're going to be distracted. And of course, those kind of things are going to happen anyway. But it sounds like you've kind of figured out a structure that works in a way that can allow you to move through individual tasks without too much kind of crossover.
Well, I think, you've got so many hats to wear. So, you've got the HR, compliance, just business management, finance, marketing. So yeah, you have to kind of try to zone in the times for specific things to get your head into that task and make sure you're working your way through it and giving things equal attention, because obviously some things have to be done, and it's just juggling that and the priorities around that. Keeping focus on different dates, for example, for our MERs, for the FCA or returns, have to be done first. So yeah, you can try and have structure, but inevitably it does kind of slip. But at least you can come back to it when you've got a spare moment and see exactly what still needs done. So.
Yeah, for sure. And before we kind of move into the main body of this discussion, I've got to know, how are you able to wake up at 5:40 every morning? What wisdom have you got to share about that? How are you doing it?
I think it's probably because I go to my bed early. No, no, I've always been a morning person, so I'm always quite happy to get up first thing. And I say to my husband, like, he never likes getting up in the morning, and I say I'm like an on-off switch, so I'm either asleep or awake. Whereas he's a dimmer, he takes an awful lot longer to come to. So yeah, I'm an on-off switch, and I wake up just the minute, sometimes even before my alarm. So yeah, I'm attuned to the nature and the natural light.
Well, that is incredibly impressive. I hats off to you very much for a 5:40 wake up. I wish I could. It's not their life. I can't do it. It's not for me. I try though. Okay, so moving into what we're talking about today, and that's looking at financial planning, running a firm from the operation side of things, from everything it takes that isn't doing the actual advising and planning themselves, because there's a whole lot of things that need to be built so that all this other stuff can happen, and without this solid foundation, without a good understanding of how you're running a practice and making sure that that's communicated effectively, you're nowhere. So as director of Wellington Wealth, in the early days, what challenges did you kind of come up against in establishing the foundation to your own firm's operations?
Yeah. I think, obviously when we started the firm, we had quite a challenging time to starting the firm, because we applied for our FCA authorization, and we were actually in business with another person, and it quickly became apparent that we were going to have to go through a business divorce. And so within a year, we had applied twice for direct authorization to the firm, and then Nikki also in that time was expecting her first child. So we had to, all hands to the deck to novate clients, etc. But whilst she was off, it just gave me a bit of thinking time to try and organise the business, because we always said we had to think like a bigger firm and not just think like a very small firm, so that we had to grow, because you kind of want to set things in stone that you're going to need in 5 years' time, not necessarily just now, just so that the growth is easier. So that's really what we did at the time. So all processes, the way that we organise our files, file structure, etc., was all done in the early days of the business, and is still in place and working for us. So, and yeah, I mean, obviously there's things that you build as you get bigger and you require, so you need to bolt on. But yeah, some foundations of just good discipline, good organisation, certainly helped with the business as we've grown to date. So
yeah, did you have any kind of you mentioned kind of discipline and organization, did you have kind of keywords, or did you have a vision that was, this is what we want, this is what we're working towards? Was there some kind of mission statement? Was there something that underpinned your attitudes towards building the business?
Yeah, we did. We had all our vision statements and our mission, etc. We have since changed that and updated it, because again, I think your business evolves and you evolve, and I suppose the industry has evolved so much, and we were quite factual, I suppose, when we wrote it down, and then we thought, no, that sounds a bit boring, so we wanted to update that. But we do have a whole ethos and culture here at Wellington Wealth, so that's kind of instilled from the outset, and yeah, that doesn't necessarily drive the operations side. The operations is more just, as I say, methodical, process-driven, facts and figures, and yeah, so it's quite, I suppose, repetitive in some ways, but I quite like that because you're methodical and you make sure you do things on time, and every year you have the same consistency. And it's also good from a business information point of view, keeping that data and analysing it going forward to help you make decisions of where you want to go next with the business. So I think keeping that information and consistency since we started has been quite important. So it's allowed us to then see where we're going next.
Yeah, definitely. And perhaps here is maybe a good place to kind of outline how you run the business. So where Nikki sits and where you sit, and what that looks like in your firm, what responsibilities you have, so the people listening to this can have an understanding of that.
Yeah. So just for those that don't know, Nicola and I are sisters, so we're quite unusual in running a firm, a financial services firm. But Nikki is always very good at the client-facing side. So she has all the qualifications right up to her CFP, and does all the financial planning and financial advice for the clients. And basically, I took the role of doing everything else. And in the early days, that was, some administration, paraplanning, whatever's needed really to make the business go smoothly. As the team have grown, it's then just keeping on top of, payrolls and health and safety and all the things that come in. Obviously, compliance is quite an important part. And making sure that compliance is just part of good business practice. So we try to incorporate it as we go so that the boxes are ticked along the way rather than having to catch up on anything. But if we do it as part of the process, it's really embedded in the culture of the firm. And obviously a really client-centric approach to the firm, whether it be anyone in the client-facing role or back office. Sometimes, my job involves answering the door to clients and having a chat to bring them in whilst the paperwork's still being prepared or anything like that. So, it's really anything other than client-facing stuff. But I do also like speaking to clients when they come into the office, and more social, I suppose, from my perspective with clients. But I think it's important for the whole team to really meet clients and get that vested interest, because then the service they deliver, they can picture that person, and it does help do a better job for that person, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess what's kind of interesting about your journey through this is at the start, there wasn't, as you said, a defined, this is what I do. I'm responsible for X and X alone. Like, it's okay, well, I'll be where I need to be in what capacity that ends up being. How have you found the evolution of where you started and the things that you were doing to where you are now? And are there things that you found that were really important that you didn't realize at the beginning that would take up more time, or things conversely that you thought were really important were actually they weren't really?
I think most of what I've done has come out of necessity, and you just have to do certain things at certain times. So as the team grew, then you have to know more on employment law, payroll, etc., and getting some help with that from different places. And the same with finance, just keeping good records and that's from the management perspective as well, and allowing you to make good decisions. And I suppose it's financial planning for a business. I mean, that's, I suppose, what I'm doing at the end of the day. You're just keeping things ticking along and making sure everything's in order. And obviously, we had a massive I suppose, spend in terms of finance in creating our financial planning studio and making sure we had everything in order from the financial perspective and from the organisation perspective to do it and get it up and running and get it filled, everything like that. It was really in my remit. So I was liaising with builders, and I never dreamed that that's something that I would be doing, but it just kind of happened for us. So you've got to be incredibly flexible, and every day changes is what I said at the start. There's no 2 days are exactly the same. So although I'm quite organised and structured, you do have to be flexible, because there's always a curveball. There's always a new regulation you have to keep up with, and sort of there's a lot of thinking time on how to digest these things and apply it to your business. So it's it keeps it interesting, and I think it's very job satisfactory. Keeping on top of different parts of the business. So. But I suppose one of my main interests is in the marketing side, even although that's not my specialism. But I went to university to do map making. So I was a topographic scientist, and I worked in the oil industry making charts. But again, it's that subject is all about the data. It's all about collecting data, storing data, reusing data, and it's the exact same in this industry. It is all data driven at the end of the day. So it's just the organization of that and making sure you can pull back out what you want. And the same data also satisfies a number of different areas. It's just how you look at it. So that's something that's been important to help the growth of the business, and something that we maybe didn't always do at the start, but it's developed over time. And because we had the good discipline and methodology to store the data in the right way, we had it there to pull off in future years when we needed it. So
yeah, and I guess nowadays we can't really talk about data with also mentioning technology, and the part that tech and AI is increasingly playing in running a firm and a business. How have you, from your perspective, found looking at new tech, learning about new tech, and looking at what to integrate or not in the business? How have you found that process? Is it something you enjoy, or is it kind of, there's so much out there, it's hard to work out what would be useful to you?
Yeah, no, I think we've always been quite good, and we've always employed technology from the start, which has allowed us to maybe grow bigger and with less people than some firms, because that's what we've set out to do. And cybersecurity has always been at the forefront of what we've done as well, which is very important for the types of data we use. But no, we try to keep an eye on things. But one thing I've noticed is, obviously when you were small, you could pivot and change quite quickly. As the business becomes much bigger, it's much more difficult to, one, make the decision to change, and also just physically the work involved to change something. And it needs a whole change management program. But we do sort of keep an eye on what's out there, and it's just got to be the decision on is it cost effective to move, or what we're going to do now. But we have bolted on lots of tech, client portals, etc. along the way. We've also changed back office systems in the time we've been doing it. So we have made an awful lot of changes, and some of them suit our business at that time. But then as you grow, you want something different. So it's also... Yeah. I think every financial services, financial planning, financial advice business has a different setup. So no two systems, no two setups are exactly the same. So it's all dependent on how much you want to spend as well, because obviously the more systems you employ, the costs go up, and that's something as a firm you need to keep an eye on to maintain all your capital adequacy and your finances. So you can't just grab every system out there that's going. You have to be quite wary of what it does, how you employ it as well. So whilst you can keep an eye out, you can't always just jump on the bandwagon of any new system. You have to be quite methodical again in your approach and due diligence to getting that embedded within a firm. So
yeah, 100%. And I mean, it ties in so nicely with the way that you've been describing your role in terms of making sure that you're open and you're flexible and you're at the forefront of what's out there, but being considered and really thinking about, okay, but what is going to work here and what direction is going to help us get to where we need to be. Because obviously with growth, there's different challenges and there's other things you need to think about. And I guess particularly there, it's looking at the hiring process and getting the right people in. How do you approach that when you're looking to grow, when you're looking to expand and bring other people in? How do you go about doing that to make it a kind of successful acquisition?
I mean, really, we've used agencies in the past to at least sift through some CVs and get the applications out there. We also, when we meet individuals, it's very much about whether they will fit in with the team, because and their approach to clients, because that's the most important thing. Can we see them speaking to our clients? Can we see them dealing with our clients? Because they are the most important thing to our business. So that person has to fit in with the sort of ethos and culture, but also make sure that they are the type of person that our clients would get on with. So that's, I suppose, quite an interesting concept, but we do have some fun questions in our interview techniques, and we've often said what we want to do is actually have a bake-off as our interview process, because we think it could tell people a lot about the individual, and that's, whether they can follow instructions, whether they work under pressure, whether they can add some style to their bake, or and if it's a disaster, it's how do they deal with that, and so we think actually that would be a really good interview process. We haven't employed it yet to date, but we have often talked about it. So.
Genius. Absolutely. I mean, everything you've listed there, completely applicable. And also, how much fun would that be, doing your best cool Hollywood impression, being like, I'm going to give you a handshake. Welcome to the team.
Exactly. I mean, some people might just walk out immediately, when they were asked to do something like that. So, you would weed out the people that would fit in and the people that wouldn't. So.
Absolutely. Who would known that the Victoria sponge would be their key to unlocking the next step in their career? It sounds fantastic. Yeah. And you talk about culture, and coming to your offices, it's clearly something that is important to you, and making sure that it's an environment that people want to be in, and that not just for clients but also for the team as well. Mm-hmm. What role do you think culture plays in bringing together a strong team that is able to be, efficient and creating the best kind of business as possible?
Yeah. I mean, we started designing, or we had a thought of what we wanted to do in the office well before lockdowns and COVID came on the scene. We just didn't think we would do it quite as soon as we did in our business journey. But we have always had the fact that clients are anxious about talking about their finances. So we always knew we wanted a much more relaxed space and a relaxed atmosphere. And I don't know if it's the female intuition in the business or what it is, but I don't think every financial services office has that. And we just, it's more a sort of nurture environment to try and bring clients on a journey with you and help them understand, rather than, forcing facts down their throat. So the office environment is really important. And the minute clients walk in, they instantly are sort of disarmed, I suppose. They don't quite know what they're coming into, which is what we wanted as well. And it just puts them at ease. And no matter whether a client has been 18 or 80, they've walked in and said, I could live here, which is again, it's a homely atmosphere. We're a family business. So we wanted to create something that people feel relaxed in. And it just so happened that when people started coming back from COVID, it was like a home from home. So it wasn't the same as, returning to a stuffy office from their home environment. So it was a wee bit of a halfway house, I suppose. So it's a nice environment to be in. We also try to have social events with clients. So that's an important part, because we feel we can get much more information and tease things out of people in a social environment rather than a formal environment. And it's pertinent to their financial planning. So we've held a number of events in the office, and more for fun than anything else. But it's definitely been worthwhile, and clients have received it well. And I suppose for a small business, it's given us quite a lot of clout as well. People come in and it's impressive to them, and it's been a great thing for us to do. And again, not every business would have invested the money to do it, but we saw ourselves here long term. And it was actually a smart financial decision as well, because renting office space in Glasgow city centre was considerably more than our mortgage on the property. So, it made sense to us in the financial sense as well. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And that was kind of where my next question was going, because obviously in the kind of climate we're in at the moment, there's a huge shift to online, to digital. And obviously there's a lot of people who are 100% digital in how they interact, and there isn't an office space, and there isn't kind of an HQ. And I mean, as you've said, for you and what you're doing, seemingly the office is a huge tool in connecting with people, in making sure that there's an environment that on the one hand feels important and gives you clout, but on the other isn't too clinical and feeling like people go in there and that you're at a business meeting. You can relax and talk about your personal circumstances and bring out some answers that perhaps if you were in an office that was more quote unquote officey might not be the case. So you were never tempted to kind of be online or look at that side of things as kind of a cost perspective?
We do online meetings. Of course, it's something we offer to clients because we deal with clients up and down the UK. It's not just Glasgow. But we do also find that, especially clients with more money, if you're meeting someone for the first time with £1 million, £2 million, with so many cyber scams, people are quite reluctant to deal with you. So once they have been to your premises, they've seen the whites of your eyes, then they might be more happy to deal online with you. But sometimes that first meeting is really important to have in the office and build that trust, because I think sometimes over a screen it's difficult to build the same sort of trust as it is in person. And it will certainly work in some businesses all the way, but we certainly prefer people, and we're people, so we love socializing and meeting new people. So it's important to us to have that connection with the people we deal with as well. So
yeah, and I mean that's what the profession is about, isn't it? It's people. It's dealing with individuals, and financial planning at its heart is understanding how you can help someone live the life that they want to live in the best way possible. And so if whatever way you use to kind of get to that end goal, that's great, and that's what we need to be thinking about and moving towards. And so before I kind of move on to our last two questions that we like to ask everybody who's a guest on the podcast, to kind of sum up looking at a financial planning business from the behind the scenes, from everything that isn't dealing face-to-face with clients and doing the advice itself. For people who are perhaps looking to set up their own firm or in early stages of it, what advice do you have? What do you know now that you didn't at the beginning? What kind of wisdom would you have to share from someone starting from scratch, looking to build a good foundation to their firm?
I think probably one of the first things is your file organization, whether it be digital, whether it be paper. I know there's probably both types out there, but yeah, you've got to be able to organize things so you can retrieve it easily. So a good file naming convention is always important. But I would also say you have to keep a rein on your costs. Always be more cautious than you want to be. It's a nice problem to have if you've got profit at the end of the year, but try to always make sure you maintain a tight control on the costs, and that has to be reconciled monthly or weekly, depending on the size of your business. So don't neglect it, and don't neglect your own plan, because that ultimately your business clients start relying on you. So you have to have your own business plan and I suppose path sorted before you can start helping other people with it.
Yeah, great advice. Excellent. Okay, so final 2 questions then. These are questions that we ask everybody who comes on our podcast. And the first one is, we really like to hear any suggestions of books that have helped people. So if there's a particular book that's helped you in your career or personally over the years, if you could share that with us, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. There's a few books that really sort of stand out, I suppose. Business for Punks by, is it James Watt from Brewdog. No, he's got Business for Punks, and what I like about that is that he explains how to run a business, but in a very comical way. It's not stuffy. It's the same sort of thing we're trying to do in our business here. It's trying to get rid of all the jargon and the normal way that people talk to you and do things in business terms, and trying to put it into much more practical approach. So that was a good one. I also loved, Daniel Priestley's stuff, particularly the 24 Assets book. And from a sort of culture point of view, I love the Legacy, which is all about the All Blacks. The author escapes me, but I can always catch up and you can put it in the notes. But they're 3 really good books. But I read a lot, so I've always got books going through my head. And I think, again, any business owner will reach for these things. And even if you get a couple of nuggets from every book, it's definitely worthwhile keeping looking. So.
Yeah, absolutely. 3 for the price of 1 there as well. Thank you very much. More than we even asked for. Okay, amazing. And so final question then. It's a very big question. Feel free to take it in whichever direction you so wish. And that question is, what are you most excited to see in the world of finance in the next 10 years?
I definitely think that there's going to be a very realistic AI advisor that will get out to the masses, because everybody needs financial advice, and you don't want to exclude people, but just the cost of actually running a business and taking on a client, you can see why it's costly, and so that cost needs to come down. But it needs to be accurate and good advice as well. So yeah, I think even using technology to get out to school kids, would be a great thing, and I'm hoping that's what the future brings, so that people are much more aware of money earlier in their lives and try not to get into the university debt. I mean, I was been frightened recently speaking to various students and how much debt they're in, and nobody should start their working life with that behind them. So. I hope something like that would come in the future to try and help manage that.
Definitely. And is it something that you would ever incorporate into your business, or you think that it's kind of they're separate things that should kind of stay separate?
No, I would love to incorporate it in the business. And in fact, we were actually quite early. We started speaking to a firm in New York who had the first AI advisor out back in 2017, 16. And, wow. We actually wanted to try and take that forward and have some sort of AI advice proposition early. But again, business and circumstance, you just become too busy and you can't pursue everything you want to pursue. So you've got to rein it back. But no, it's certainly always been on our radar, because we know that an advisor or planner can only deal with so many clients. And, to get the scale you want, you have to use technology to assist with that. And, your business is naturally going to grow because, people, if you're doing a good job, people refer business all the time. So, it's never going to stop growing. So you just have to either plug in new advisors or find a solution to help with that and help more people. So, we're happy to go with the flow and embrace everything that's coming our way.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see the next 10 years. I mean, in the speed of which AI and AI advice has kind of rapidly grown in the last year to 2 years, thinking about the next 10 is very exciting. And if we can make it more accessible, get some more financial education, it would be a much, much, much better world that we live in.
Definitely.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
No, that was great. Thanks for having me.
So that was Jennifer Ellis on the NextGen Planners podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can hear all of our previous podcast episodes on Spotify, Apple, Google, and on our website. There you can also find loads more information about our brilliant community. And finally, if you can, do leave us a review. It really does help to grow the podcast and get it out to even more people. Thank you very much.